Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Mid-South Wrestling Review Series, the 15th of January, 1983. And we open with an odd match. Odd because it's a talent we don't normally see, and that is Kevin Von Erich of world-class wrestling fame against Mike Bond. Von Erich here for a couple of months, if that. Not very long, but trying to get some experience in another area. He does this in Florida as well, although he's in Florida for a longer span of time, I'm pretty sure. Head Scissors Takeover and the like. They're really putting over the Von Erich name and the value of the Von Erich family here in 1983. And again, he's very basic with Bond. Hits a knee to the midsection pretty quickly and authoritatively. Of course, Kevin Von Erich, probably the most consistent Von Erich of the era at the time, through the late 70s, through the entire world-class run, because he's the only brother that's left by the end of the world-class run, which is really sad. Actually, Kerry had gone on to WWF before World Class ended. But anyway, he hits a backdrop and snaps over his opponent and goes to work on Bond, and then manages to hit a big splash, which a splash is a finish at that point. Return of Iron Mike Sharp, who we haven't seen in a couple of weeks. He's facing Yoshiatsu. I don't know if there's a deal with Japanese promotions at the time or what that looks like, but I do know that back-to-back matches we have Japanese talents Yatsu and Hiro Matsuda, who I think biggest claim to fame for most people would be that he trained Hulk Hogan in Florida in the 70s. Obviously, Matsuda has much more value than that, but a trainer is a major part of what people know him for. Anyway, takedown by Sharp. Sharp, a former Louisiana champion and other things. Still a big deal here in 1983. Works the arm, and then we see the backbreaker, among other things. And big Salto suplex by Yatsu. Yatsu manages to get a 2 count on Sharp and comes out of trouble in a hurry. Back elbow by Yatsu, and he goes right in for the chop. We see Yatsu hit quite a number of things, and then big clothesline by Sharp out of nowhere, and really kind of gets his comeuppance a little bit. Fans are solidly behind Sharp because they know his talent, they know what he brings to the table, and he manages to go to town, hits a big clothesline, actually catches him in the throat, and gets a victory off a clothesline. Think about that. 1983, you can still beat a guy with a clothesline. As mentioned, Hiro Matsuda up next against Mr. Wrestling 2, so that's an interesting combination. Matsuda wearing he wears a black belt and gi and all of that, so certainly a little bit of a different tie-in there, not your traditional deal, but Wrestling 2, of course, does very well with more traditionalized wrestling. Big surprise with the name, right? But anyway, goes to work on the headlock for quite a bit. Wrestling 2 takes the early part of the match, as I think most fans would expect. Some cheap shots by Matsuda. Matsuda tries for leg lock, but Wrestling 2 kicks off. Obviously, the localized talent being made to look good here, but a arm lock, and then a lot of just on the mat wrestling that we'd come to see. Even something as simple as what we would know today as passing the guard, double arm. Kind of a, I don't want to say a chokehold, but a nerve hold by Matsuda. Matsuda does get a few more minutes out of this match, and I think the bringing in of international talent is something that not enough promotions do, but I think international talent, at least for my money, would always be there to put over the local talent, because the local talent is going to be with the company going forward. Anyway, Wrestling 2 does find his way to hit his knee lift, which obviously he's known for at the time, and sends his adversary crumpling to the canvas. which is always good for the sake of the finish. Wrestling 2 using a little bit more heel tactic in this particular match than he normally would, so there's a little bit of frustration. Also, kind of puts over the international talent as having some different skills, which is always good too. Hard shot to the midsection by Wrestling 2. And again, one thing I like about Matsuda is his bumps are more. He falls forward. He falls like he's been in a real fight. It's not fancy and flippy and all that. It's blunk and down you go. And I think there's value in that. Wrestling 2 does come up with your victory here. And then we move on to a tag team match. Landell and Horner versus Kamala and Great Kabuki is up next. Kabuki and Kamala presented by, of course, Skandar Akbar. Landell and Horner, just a really interesting team. They would actually have some matches in Smoky Mountain about, let's see, probably 10 years later, something like that. So it's interesting that wrestlers kind of stay around each other in a weird way. Everything you do in wrestling does come back on you sooner or later. Gary Hart kind of endorses Kabuki once again, so probably taped the same day this particular television as the last one. Kamala and Kabuki, an interesting heel duo, and your younger baby faces in Landell and Horner a little bit intimidated. Kabuki starts the match with Landell, and basically you've got the martial arts deal. Horner and Landell cut the ring off on Kabuki. Obviously, you're not going to get the cut off on Kamala. They're trying to protect him for a major run. So you've got to, if you got to do something with somebody, you're going to do it with Kamala. You're going to do it with Kamala, and that means Kabuki has to be the one to work the majority of the match, as he is. He's hitting, strikes and really basic stuff all throughout. And again, Horner tries to come up and tag off, and a few shots there. Landell coming back a little bit, but Kabuki always cutting him off. And then we see the kick under the chin by Kabuki. Kabuki always known for the kick, and it cuts off the ring. Gary Hart still at ringside. I don't know if there was a plan for Gary Hart to be a supporting character on Mid-South at a point, or if he's just in town for, like a week's worth of TV, and that's like 3 weeks of TV. Who knows? Anyway, big sidekick by Kabuki, who manages to hit the kick after Tim Horner comes off the top, Tim Horner comes off the top rope. Shoot judo style throw, and then finally the tag to Kamala. Kamala comes in and hits the big splash. Boom, 1, 2, 3. Kamala obviously is going to get your victory after that splash. He hits a couple of them actually, and then gets a victory relatively quickly over Buddy Landell. Hacksaw Duggan and Bruno Sammartino Jr., match I did not know ever happened and was surprised to find out that it did. Duggan, of course, has been a major force and is still your, I believe, Louisiana champion at this point. Sammartino tries go behinds and basic wrestling on Duggan. Doesn't really go very well. Does hit an atomic drop on Duggan, but Duggan right off the ropes and into an arm drag, slides out of the ring. One thing that I have to say is Mid-South Duggan, which I had not seen much of before now, is much more agile and kind of slides around. He's also, I wish WWF had given him a chance to be a heel. I know Vince wasn't going to do that with the USA gimmick that they gave him when he came in. I get it. But still, him as a heel, at least for even a 6 month to a year run, would have been fun. Interesting that Duggan takes a bump for the trip type maneuver from Sammartino Jr. and then goes right to work on him. Interesting that also he's a brawler who doesn't overpower his guys to the point where they can't fight back, but you can obviously see, and a person watching at home would easily see Duggan as a guy you don't want to bar fight with. Sunset flip attempt and success by Sammartino Jr. Sammartino Jr. does not get the victory with the sunset flip, but does get a quick, almost near fall. Diving knee by Duggan. Duggan does not hook the leg, and thus Sammartino comes out the back door. Really, really good match for the experience level of both guys, and the fact that, Duggan's kind of making Sammartino look better than he is at this point. Throws him to the outside. Worth watching if you're an enhancement guy or a guy who needs to know how to make a babyface look good, worth checking out because that's a useful thing. And obviously, post pandemic, guys are going to go back to independence. And I think watching, be it Mid South or NWA or anything before the Attitude Era, I think you learn how to work a whole bunch more than you do watching the flippy flop stuff that's on today. And when you look at Vince McMahon, chastising talents over and saying they're not ready to be on TV, I think it's because they get the message that you got to work TV style, and then they're not ready to really work matches, and so that's a catch-22. Anyway, Gino Hernandez and Chavo Guerrero Jr. is your main event of the day, as Duggan does get a victory over that last match. And obviously, Wrestling 2 and Gino have wrestled before. And I'm sorry, Gino Hernandez and Chavo Guerrero Jr. is your match here. I was looking at another bit of notes. Chavo coming back and topping up here and managing to go. They battle over an arm drag, arm locks, and the like for the first couple of minutes, hooking on the arm bar and a takedown. And both guys actually really good with just taking a body part and going with it for the first few minutes. Surprised they were given nearly 11, 12 minutes of television time. Chavo Guerrero, probably one of the more lucha-infused guys for 82, 83 at the time, working in the States regularly. Probably El Santo and Mil Mascaras being the others of major note, who do work both Mid-South and Texas territories, be it Dallas, Houston, or I don't know that they worked Amarillo. Anyway, cut off by Gino Hernandez. He uses much more brawling tactics. The finesse used obviously more by Guerrero, and the brawling used by Hernandez. Hernandez can go, as we see in the early parts of this match, on the mat if needed. Hernandez actually does the Ray Stevens up and over bump to the outside, which sets up, and people will be surprised when I say this, but sets up the ability for a dive. And then we see the inverted surfboard by Guerrero. They go through commercial breaks, which is actually, in a main event scenario, I don't mind them doing commercial break stuff. I don't like it when it's an early match. Just time your matches better. But in a main event, I don't mind it so much, as long as there's been at least half the match taking place before the commercial. Indian Deathlock by Chavo Guerrero Jr. This is actually one of the better Mid-South matches I've seen in a while. Worth going out of your way to see on this January 15th, 83 match. And cut off with the back elbow by Hernandez. And again, we kind of see a big splash in the corner by Chavo. Chavo doesn't really want to take backward steps. He does brawl a bit more as the match goes on with Hernandez. We didn't see that earlier. We do see a really interesting salto suplex into a pinning combination that's more traditional by Guerrero as we go forward. Then they slow the match down with the inverted chin locks and just slowing it down. They've done a lot of stuff in the match, but they always come back to basics when they need to. This is probably, like I said, one of the better television matches in a while that doesn't really have a huge story behind it, but has enough of one in the match itself to stand alone as something that holds up, 30, almost 35 years later, something like that, 37 years later. It's interesting because you don't see that with a lot of matches from this era, but you do see it every once in a while, and it's guys who knew how to tell a real big story. Guerrero takes him around the ring, hits him into the buckles quite a few times, hits a flying forearm that would rival Tito Santana. Maybe that's where Tito got it from, I don't know. And then the referee takes a flying forearm as Guerrero tries for the second one. Doesn't go quite well, and Gino manages to go to the outside of the ring, grab a steel chair, and gets drop kicked through, and then drops the chair. Guerrero comes up and nails Gino, who does get his hands up completely with the chair, leading to a referee coming back in and giving Guerrero the victory after using the chair, and the fans are happy with that. That will close us for this episode, but again, we'll be back with more right after this.